Hello once again, and welcome to the Word of the Day podcast, coming to you, as always, pre-recorded from the RAV4 studios. My name is Jamie Silva. I am your host, and I am super jazzed to have this opportunity to pleasantly explain another useful word to you all. And here to help me do so is yet another talented voice actor, Paige. Paige, thanks so much for being on the program.
Thanks, Jamie. Happy to be here.
All right, let's get into it, shall we? Today's word is apropos, which is a tremendously useful word, one that you can use all the time. I would say apropos means related or relevant to something, usually in regard to a topic or idea in conversation.
The online definition goes like this, quote, very appropriate to a particular situation, unquote. Well, Jamie, no offense or anything, but I think I like this definition better than yours.
Oh, drat. Why's that?
Well, it's broader for one thing. It includes the idea that something is fitting, not just in the sense that it's relevant to a topic of conversation, as your definition had it, but also in the sense that something just fits. It makes sense. It's appropriate to its circumstances somehow.
No, I agree. That makes sense. So like a cactus in a rock garden, that would be apropos. Or grilled corn at a 4th of July party. Or eggnog at a Christmas party. Or, how about this? A baseball game on the radio on a warm spring day. Or a hot summer day, or also a crisp fall day.
What you seem to be driving at, Jamie, is that baseball on the radio is always apropos. It's appropriate and fitting for the season, basically no matter what season it is.
Right, yeah, that's exactly what I meant. Honestly, I'd probably listen to winter baseball on the radio too, come to think of it. You know, the crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, the surprised shout of the runner slipping on a patch of ice while rounding second base. You can't beat that atmosphere.
Okay, I think we're losing the thread a little bit.
Oh, right, sorry. So we are. Folks, here is one quick and easy way to use apropos. A specific phrase, actually. That phrase is apropos of, and it's the equivalent of the phrase speaking of which. So instead of saying, speaking of monkeys, have you been to the new zoo yet? You could say, apropos of monkeys, have you been to the new zoo? Or, to put it another equally proper way, I feel like the new zoo is apropos here.
The word apropos is perfectly suited to everyday conversation because people move from subject to subject all the time. Saying things are apropos is just a fancier way of verbally transitioning from one topic to another, and everyone's impressed by a smooth segue to another apropos topic. But Jamie, what happens if I want to say apropos, but I can't think of how to move from one subject to another? Because what I want to talk about is too far removed from what people are already talking about. Or maybe it's the middle of a long silence, so there's no topic to transition from. What do I do there?
Those are tough spots, Paige, no doubt, but apropos has you covered. The phrase you want here is apropos of nothing. This is an articulate and powerful method of introducing a totally new, out-of-the-blue subject, either to take charge during an unexpected and awkward lull in the conversation, or to suddenly steer the conversation towards whatever you want to discuss. It's the same as saying, like, hey, this is random, but etc., etc.
Okay, let's try it out. Go ahead and try to talk about something.
Okay. Paige, I would say that all other things being equal, Swiss cheese should be cheaper than other types of cheese because you're actually getting less cheese. What with all the holes, you know?
Well, apropos of nothing, have you ever gone whitewater rafting? I'm brainstorming fun activities for next summer.
No, I haven't, but I've always wanted to. Where do you plan to go? Do you have like a specific river in mind? And do you have a name for your raft?
And just like that, without the smallest hiccup in the conversation, we're talking about fun summer activities, which is what I wanted to talk about. Score another one for apropos.
Now, the French gave us apropos via the phrase apropos, which is spelled the same way, but is technically two words, not one. The stands on its own. It means the same thing, though. See, this is one of those words or phrases that transfers directly from one language to another. For example, think of the dessert known as crème brûlée. We use the French pronunciation there, more or less.
Yeah, that's why we don't pronounce it crème brûlée, nor do we say apropos instead of apropos. And you can actually take this all the way back to Latin, specifically to the word prope, meaning near in a spatial or geographic sense, i.e., City Hall is near the park. So one way to think about this in a conversation is that one topic may be intellectually nearby another, and thus apropos.
All right, let's move to some examples of how to use apropos in everyday conversation. Example number 1. Hey look, the ice cream store also sells a make-your-own waffle cone from scratch kit. How very apropos. This is actually the appropriate/fitting sense, by the way. Like, it is proper and it makes sense that the ice cream store is into waffle cones.
Example number 2. When discussing how to best take advantage of this beautiful weather, the subject of volleyball becomes extremely apropos. Now, this, of course, is the related/relevant sense.
So is example number 3. Because Kirk was always hungry, he seemed to consider the subject of pizza to be apropos basically no matter what people around him were talking about. Just last week, in fact, Kirk was heard to say, "Hey, did I hear someone mention lawn mulch? Well, I've always said that the best tomatoes come from the best mulch, and the best tomato sauce comes from the best tomatoes, and the best pizza uses the best tomato sauce. And look, who's down for pizza?" All right, that's going to be it for the examples, but we do have one more item to discuss here. It has to do with this exercise in the field of improv called yes and. The idea here is that if you're in the middle of a skit or a sketch or comedy bit with another person where you're making things up as you go along, if your improv partner says or does something, no matter how wacky or awkward, you just go with it. You have to. Because if you don't, the whole thing just breaks down and no one laughs and your comedy career never gets off the ground.
Thus, in this yes and exercise, whatever your improv partner says, you have to start your response with the phrase, yes and. This means that you agree with whatever they're saying, and then hopefully you build on it with your own bit of improvisation. Jamie and I will demonstrate. First, the wrong way. So, Jamie, any new hobbies? I hear you're doing something animal-related these days?
Hobbies? Me? No, none to speak of. Say, Paige, why are you wearing a monocle?
I haven't the faintest idea what you're talking about.
Right, so, folks, clearly this bit is going nowhere. Neither Paige nor I will accept the suggestions and insinuations of the other, so it's hopeless.
Exactly, but contrast that with the yes and approach, which goes like this. So, Jamie, I hear you've taken up creative sheep shearing.
Yes, and every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, I'm out there with the practice flock, shearing beautiful patterns onto those fleeces. Did you happen to see my exhibit at the county fair last week?
Yes, and I heard it was disqualified for some reason.
Yes, and that was pretty embarrassing. Someone ratted me out for using an electric razor to get the finer detail work done. That wasn't you, was it?
Yes, it was, and I have no regrets.
And scene. Though, I mean, if this was a real improv sketch, we would have gone on. I really think we could have. We were just getting going here, and I'm sure it would have been hilarious.
Yes, and the audience would have gone wild.
Well, I don't know about that.
Yes, and we would be signing the papers for a Netflix comedy special within days.
Paige, we're done with the yes and exercise. We've made that point.
Right. My bad. It's just kind of addicting.
That it is. But continuing, the word apropos suggests a new version of this game, one in which each person has to change the subject every time they speak by saying apropos of which, and then transitioning to a new topic, one that is related to but different from the previous one. Just like you'd say, speaking of which, remember?
Quick question. In this game, can we say apropos of nothing?
No, sorry, that would be cheating. There has to be at least some connection between the topics. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Paige, sometimes I think, it's so easy to gripe about the little inconveniences and difficulties of daily life. But since avoiding problems of some kind or another is impossible, shouldn't we be grateful that the problems we do have are, in most cases, the sort that stem from a relatively comfortable and happy existence? Do you see what I'm saying?
Problems, yes, I think I understand completely. And apropos of which, I myself encountered a very serious and very relatable problem this week. It concerned a faulty light bulb in the third chandelier in our dining hall. I detected a slight flicker in it during the cheese course at last night's dinner with the governor, who of course I had to apologize to profusely for the dim lighting, which might have been what caused him to confuse the Chev cheese with the Wensleydale. Anyway, today I was forced to ask Gusteau, our butler, to step away from buffing the fenders on the Royce and attend to the light bulb straight away. Thank goodness for Gusteau. He's such a help to us,
Hey, apropos of Gusteau, I believe I saw him in town this weekend, attempting to find a buyer for some of your choicest china.
What? Our Gusteau?
The very one. And at very reasonable rates. I might have picked up some flatware myself.
Well, apropos of which, I have been troubled recently by the rising crime rate in this neighborhood, and I may find occasion to discuss this pressing social problem with Gusteau this week.
And there you have it. It's like an equestrian exhibition at a circus, where the riders or acrobats leap from horse to horse in mid-gallop, reversing direction with unparalleled athleticism and ease.
And you all out there listening, thanks to Apropos, now you'll be able to leap from topic to topic with suavity and dexterity, wowing your friends and embittering your enemies.
Yes, and apropos of giving thanks and expressing gratitude, allow me to thank you, Paige, very much for joining me on today's program.
Thanks, Jamie. It was my pleasure.
Well, folks, that'll do it for us today. Don't forget that if this show sounds apropos to some interests of your friends, perhaps friends who love language and learning and using new words like you so love to do, maybe alert them to the existence of this show. I'm sure they'll be grateful. Until next time, then, this has been another edition of the Word of the Day podcast, where we strive to produce unimaginably informative and superlatively entertaining episodes every time. This is your host, Jamie Silva, saying so long from the RAV4 studios. Please have a great, and we'll see you next time.